Hi guys, thank you for joining today's session. Let me start sharing the screen. So let me go on here and hopefully you can see the screen soon. Let me minimize over here. Yep, can you confirm that you can see the screen properly, the presentation?
Yes.
I hope. Perfect. Thank you so much. So again, thank you for joining this session today. The code 2745. Today's about this session is about modern vSphere monitoring and dashboard using InfluxDB, Telegraf, and Grafana. My name is Jorge de la Cruz. I'm a blogger and the expert, and I've been doing this pretty much for fun since it was released out in the wild. I think these sessions are, we are all here, so if you have any questions, just put it on the chat and I'll try my best to go there and answer them. So let me pass to the next slide. Okay, so the agenda, it's not that long because we have what, I think 30 minutes, right, till 9:50 my time, 9 p.m. Probably another time zone for yourselves. So the agenda, it's the problems I have solved by choosing time series, and I'm going just to mention a few points. Then monitoring 101, really basic. Then after, we are going to jump finally into the VMware vSphere monitoring. We are going to mention some InfluxDB, Telegraf, and Grafana, some basic concepts. And finally, I will show you a demo, which they are some screenshots that I have in the slides, just in case that I will have any problem, you know, within the live session, anyways. So I've been blogging in jorgedelacruz.es or in the .uk for the English versions since September 2011. For the Spanish version, I published more than 1,000 articles. That's a lot of articles there over these years. That's the visits that I had last year, and at the end as well, husband and father. I put it here because for the ones that you are husbands and fathers as well, you will understand how difficult it is to combine a passion like this, like blogging, or spend some nights or weekends playing with Grafana and dashboards and VMware on the lab. So I just wanted to mention here that it is a challenge and probably an achievement. So for that reason, I added just over there. So the problems I have solved by choosing time series. So let's start over here. You can see that the first problem I've solved by choosing time series, I just wanted a purpose-built technology for storing all these metrics, all the metrics that I have or I wanted to have by monitoring VMware, right? Because of course there are a lot of VMs, inside every VM we have a lot of metrics. And I just wanted a database where I could store millions of these metrics. So that was the problem I resolved by choosing time series. In this case, InfluxDB, which they are purpose built to store, millions of these metrics without any problem. Second problem that I solved, it was as well, I wanted something that it didn't consume that much time by installing it or configuring it. I didn't want anything that it was complex, heavy, that once again, because all of this I was doing it over weekends or nights, I didn't want to spend, I don't know, like weeks until I install something to monitor in this case, my lab center, my lab in VMware. So that's another problem that I solved by choosing time series, in this case, InfluxDB and Telegraf, because they have a plugin already. They call it an input to monitor vSphere, right? So that was super simple, and I resolved that problem. Another one, it was easy to find and well documented, the project itself, so the documentation. I wanted something that it was easy, but in the case that I had a problem, I could just go and check out the documentation and it was pretty clear. And if it was not clear enough and I could contribute, then I could do it by myself. So I was looking for something that it was published probably like in GitHub, the documentation and so on. So I resolved that as well by choosing, in this case, InfluxDB and Telegraf. So Another problem, it was the technology that scales starting small as a Raspberry Pi. So I had everything on a Raspberry Pi. I started that simple with an InfluxDB there, with a Telegraf agent on that Raspberry Pi 4, and then from there I scaled to a bigger VM with more resources, with more CPU and more RAM. So, and that's InfluxDB in this case, it does not have any problem with that. So you can just start as simple as a Raspberry Pi, and go on a scale as much as you need. So another problem, I wanted beautiful, useful, and ready-to-consume dashboards. So the ready-to-consume dashboards, they weren't there at the time I started doing all of this. But at least I had the technology. So it was Grafana, and it allowed me to produce all of these beautiful dashboards later on. So, but at least one of the good things of Grafana is that there are so many examples already out there. So you could just use them for inspiration itself. But for VMware vSphere, at the time I started, they weren't that many really at that point. Finally, I think I mentioned this before, but it was an open source core, easy to contribute. I'm not really a developer myself, but as I said, if I could consume the documentation and I think, okay, maybe I can just make this edit and try to submit it into GitHub. That's something that with open source projects you can do it. In closed source projects, sometimes it's a bit more difficult. So I think the open source core for me was important once again, because I always prefer them. And once again, they just have more a faster cadence of releases. You could produce there like a GitHub issue with the problems you're facing and so on. So that's another problem I resolve by choosing, in this case, InfluxDB, Grafana, and Telegraf, because all of them, they are open source, and I created a few issues on GitHub, and they always been really, really helpful. So I really enjoy that. Monitoring 101. Super simple. What is time series? Because I've been mentioning the problems that I resolve with time series, but maybe you are not familiar with the time series, right? So on the left of your screen, you have these classic relational databases where, of course, you have like tables, and in every table, they have relationships, and for example, the name, age, nickname, is it an employee, yes or no, and so on. That's a classical relational database. Now, if we move into the time series database, what is that about? Is that per every timestamp? So in Unix timestamp, they are saved different metrics with different tags here and metrics at the end values, right? So today, for example, yes, the 5 of October 9:30, I'm saving that the CPU on this specific VM is this value, the RAM, etc., etc. So, and that it's much simpler because you can always go to the timestamp that you're looking for, and then inside the timestamp you can always check, okay, what happened in that timestamp. So in terms of CPU, RAM, CPU ready, and so on. So that it's the quick difference between classical relational databases and time series databases. So, but now put it in perspective, because I mentioned as well, of course, my lab is really small, but if you put this in production and you start to monitor in thousands and thousands of, VMs, you will see the difference between kind of like a non-built, non-purpose built database or a time series database. For example, just a quick example here between PostgreSQL and versus timescale, for example, which is another time series similar as InfluxDB. You can see over here that as the data set becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, millions of rows, the insert rate, meaning the performance, in PostgreSQL, it was really degraded here to the point that it was really, really slow, while in a project like the time series database, it's still there, stays very, very, very steady. So the writes and reads, the performance, it's still very, very good. So That's just a quick example that I found it here on the source, and that you will be able later on to click on the link and take a quick look into that. So that was really, really good to see, which I knew already, but it was really good to see that somebody spend their time doing these comparisons, right? Let's talk about, because we're talking about monitoring, right? On monitoring 101. Let's talk about SNMP. So the Simple Network Management Protocol. I think that if you have used SNMP in the past, you will probably agree with me that it's not really simple, especially because if you don't have the MIPS or if you don't have the OIDs, you can have so many problems. And even if you have them, they are massive, big Bible with, I don't know, with a lot of queries to metrics to query, that you do not have that much documentation. So it's not that simple, SNMP at all. But anyways, it's kind of the foundation of the monitoring app and observability. So I just wanted to mention here a couple of things here. Try to use always version 3. In the case that you are going to use SNMP with VMware or with any other product, ESXi, or even other things like Cisco or so on, please use the version 3 because, of course, it has authentication and security. Please try to obtain the most up-to-date MIPS from the vendors. VMware does a good job keeping them up to date, and try to avoid the public SNMP community as well. That's kind of just important things to bear in mind. How to not enable SNMP on vCenter appliance. So this is, if you Google and then how to enable SNMP on vCenter server, you will see probably these commands over here, like, hey, yeah, just put the SNMP set, communities public, and then the targets and the log level warning and enable. Please don't do this. And then follow the best practices to once again enable them with version 3. So I didn't put them on here, but I'm showing you what not to do instead of what you need to do. Just Google it and you will see the other result is just how to enable it in version 3 with a user and password and so on. Yeah, I think, and then this is how to not enable it in ESXi. Once again, probably the first result, if you put SNMP ESXi, these are the commands that you will see. Please don't use them because they are really unsecure. They are version 1, and they expose a lot of they expose a lot of information. What information? I think I can show it to you later on the next slides. So let's talk about a MIP dissection, understanding what a management information base is, which they are, once again, they are the MIPS. You know, if you have used SNMP, which again is not everything but simple, you know that everything, it has kind of like an OID or OID number, so root 1.3.6.1 on this example that I am just following the yellow signals here, .2, .1, and then the OID of the system description, the vendors. So that is the opposite of simple. If you ask me, for example, in terms of VMware, now we can see that for the VMware system, they are 1.3.6.1.4.1, then the VMware vendor itself, and then later on you have different sets of subsystems here, and inside this you will still be able to query a lot of other things. So again, it's not that simple, it's a bit difficult, and it is a bit tricky with all of this MIP and SNMP, if you ask me. So I told you about if you expose over version 1, which of course is kind of open for everyone that that intercepts the traffic, what they can see over SNMP a lot of things, like the version that you are for the VMware vCenter server, especially difficult after all the security vulnerabilities. In the case that somebody gain access into the traffic of the SNMP and they get the VSCA version, it will be really tricky, because they can see if you have the patches or not. They can see as well the host name, they can see the networking, and so on and so on. So I mean, it just the SNMP, it exposes so much information. So please keep that in version 3, which it has authentication. So just bear that in mind. For that reason, I was showing to you what not to do. Okay, now we are in the middle of the session. It's 50 minutes to go, 40 minutes to go. VMware vSphere monitoring. It's the visibility of what's going on inside our vSphere environment. What probably you will want to see, I mean, from a normal perspective, normal observability on your cluster, you will probably want to see the CPU usage per cluster, per host, per VM, probably in percentage, probably as well in megahertz, depend of the use case that you want to see. The RAM usage as well, you will probably want to see per cluster as well, host and per VM, probably in gigabytes, sometimes in CPU in percentage as well. I think on the latest dashboards I added in percentage as well. For the data stores, I'm pretty sure you want to see, well, the usage in percentage for the capacity, and why not see the VMFS, the reads and writes, IOPS and total latency. So that's something that Telegraf with the Telegraf plugin, it gives you as well. Finally, I'm pretty sure that you want to see per VM stats later on to see which VM is consuming more CPU, more RAM, more disk, and so on. So that's probably what you want to see. And this is where I spend the most time just building dashboards, well, for the community, for you guys. InfluxDB, Telegraf, and Grafana. I think this is on the community. You will probably see as a tick stack, and it's a perfect combination of open source projects. So let me show you on here the simple diagram of what it's all about. So we have the InfluxDB, that's the time series that I mentioned at the beginning, all the problems that I solved by choosing a time series database, in this case InfluxDB. That's an open source project. You can install the three of them in one single VM, or you can always scale this and put InfluxDB even on a cluster if you have the enterprise version. So this is where we store all the metrics. Now we have the Telegraf, which it is really the agent. It's really lightweight agent. They can be Linux, they can be Windows. I think if you have a Wavefront, that's as well leveraging Telegraf, by the way. So, well, anyways, Telegraf is going to just ingest that information from the vCenter and saving it into InfluxDB. Finally, what we will have on top here is just the Grafana, which it will be the dashboarding system, what is going to show us these beautiful dashboards that I'm going to show you later on. So it's simple diagram just for you to understand the components and pretty much where the traffic goes or the data as well. So from the vCenter, the Telegraf ingested and then save it into InfluxDB, and then from Grafana we just go and query the information. So really simple. How you can start monitoring your environment today? There are a few different ways. The first one, it will be by installing Telegraf on Windows, on Linux. It doesn't matter, on a container, on Docker. You can install that super simple. Or you can as well just download everything. If you go to the VMware Flinks page, you will see what is called vSAN Performance Monitor. And that is an OVA created by VMware, I think for probably 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, probably 2 years already. And that is an OVA with all of the three components and with the extra vSAN dashboards and the and so much work around the vSAN. But anyways, you can just go download that and import my dashboards, and they will work without any problem. So that's another good way to start with all of this. And finally, just the Grafana, just import the dashboards that I'll show you in a minute. So how you need to configure the Telegraf to start monitoring? It doesn't matter if it's in Windows or in Linux. You just need to open the telegraf.conf, and then you will see something that is called inputs.vsphere. You need to remove the comment from there and then point to your vCenter server. So the HTTPS, the IP or FQDN, and then the SDK, and then you need a username which needs to have access to the whole tree, but in read only. And you just introduce here the password. We have kind of two different configurations: one for the real-time information and another one for the historical information. So this interval for the real-time, you can just go down up to 20 seconds chunks. So that is the same as vCenter is going to show you when you go to your vCenter overview performance. Then real time, you will see that this all of those metrics are in chunks of or spaces in 20 seconds. So you can just go down to 20 seconds on here. And for the other one, it's much better that you just keep it like this, like 300 seconds. Why is all of this? I'll mention here quickly how and why. It's because the vCenter stores the real-time information in chunks of every 20 seconds in the ESXi RAM, meaning that, of course, it's super simple and fast to query, but it is a bit more expensive. Of course, you cannot keep, I mean, vCenter cannot keep that for more than an hour because, again, it's just in ESXi RAM. So that it's, for example, for the VM metrics, CPU, RAM, networking, and the ESXi's as well, kind of the same metrics like CPU, RAM, networking, and so on. For other metrics like data store cluster, data center metrics, and so on, they are stored in ranges of 5 minutes, or Telegraf can query them in ranges of every 5 minutes. So this is how vCenter works, and this is how, of course, the agent that is going to retrieve this data is going to receive it. I just wanted to mention that for that reason, the two configurations on Telegraf, that this is a best practice. Demo time. If you see something you like it or have a question during the demo, please make me stop at any time. Put it here on the chat. Let me see if I can see the chat. Oh, it's already for comments there. So I'm going to finish quick and try to answer the questions over there. So this is the first dashboard, the dashboard that you can download for free on grafana.com. You just search by VMware vSphere, and you will see this dashboard over there. You will need, of course, the Telegraf already downloading data and the InfluxDB configure. And Grafana install, but after you have all of those three components, you download this dashboard, and it is going to work out of the box for your environment. So if you have like a 3 clusters, then it will show 3 clusters. If you have like an ESXi, they will have 1 ESXi. All of this, it is going to show as you have it today on your environment out of the box. So it's going to show you your data storage usage on here, some sort of kind of like Back to the Future. You remember on the DeLorean? So it reminds me to that. It's going to show you the cluster CPU usage, the RAM usage in percentage, cluster network, and so on. The data store usage, I put it in speedometers because sometimes people prefer them on here, on these sort of charts. But because these dashboards are for you, you can always go there and edit whatever you don't like. You don't like the red color, you can just go there and change the red color on here for the RAM usage. You don't like this over here, you can go there and remove it without any problem. So this is the vSphere overview. This is going to be still the vSphere overview, but if you scroll down a bit, it's a bit busy, but because it shows the hypervisor status, all the hypervisors that you have, all the hypervisors that you have for memory, net usage, the vCenter, and then it will try to show as many VMs as possible within all of this, but I understand that Grafana needs to have like some sort of limit that when you put more than 50 or 100 VMs, it cannot render them on one single view for some reason. I will need to investigate more about that. But anyways, this is how it's going to show this dashboard over here. So now we have another dashboard which is for the hosts, and for the hosts you can see that I'm going to show you the uptime, the CPU usage in megahertz, the RAM usage in gigabytes, and now in percentage. The CPU ready, really important panel as you know. So you have that as well on the right, and you can see that you have here as many ESXi's as you have, and you will be able to filter them as well on the top for the ESXi that you want to monitor. Related but not within the same vSphere plugin, it's the monitoring of the temperatures of your Supermicros, HPE, Dell, anything that is it's exposing over the IPMI. You can get that as well with Grafana, and you can just check on the grafana.com, search by IPMI, and you will see this dashboard ready to consume, ready for you to start it. This really saved me a couple of times during the summer here in the UK. So just check it out if you have a dashboard on a place that it can be quite hot during the summer. moving into another dashboard, and I think I'm finishing already. This is the dashboard per VMs, one of the ones that I check the most, because of course, when I want to check one of those rogue VMs that is consuming a lot of CPU.
Does Bob help you?
Sorry?
Oh, pretty good. How you doing?
Just a reminder to mute yourself if.
Yeah. Well, anyways, this is the VMs dashboard, and then you can see here the CPU usage, RAM usage. Once again, the CPU ready in milliseconds per VMs, and you can always go there in the top and filter them as well. So I think they look really, really useful.
Okay,
but
hold
once
on
again,
1 second here.
you can just build them to your taste and edit them as much as you like, and yeah, well, make something bigger, make something smaller, and so on and so forth. Finally, this is the data store one. It's not showing much information other than the consumption on the of the use space and the free space on here.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I got another meeting going on, and I can't mute it here. So.
Okay, so well, yes. If
George,
you like
I think, can you mute him? I'm trying. I can't do it.
Yeah, if you could maybe try and call me back tomorrow, it'd probably be better.
I don't know really.
It's Robert. I don't know if you can see it.
Robert
Robert
Petit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
you got it. Thank you.
So thank you so much, guys. Please take your survey. It will be on the VMwall site. I think, let me go ahead into the chat. 10 comments already. Let me see. We have some minutes to try to answer as much as possible. Let's start from the beginning. I can see it. Yes, yes, sir. Looking forward to this. Literally just follow one of your guides to deploy. Thank you, Raymond. Michael, do you use Grafana for other monitoring or keep dedicated for the virtual environment? I use Grafana for a lot of other things to monitor, not just VMware, but it's my main reason why I deployed, but I use it to monitor consuming from other APIs and yeah, a lot of stuff, you know, like IoT, the temperature sensors and all that stuff. I'm using it for a lot of things, but VMware was, and it will be always my main use case for this. For that reason, I just wanted to present this session to you guys. Is it possible to use Telegraf exporter combined with this Telegraf vSphere plugin and thus ensure all this data end up in Prometheus instead? I think if you search by vSphere Prometheus, you will have some information already there. It's an exporter that I think is still work in progress. So take a look into that and let me know if you have any questions. I think we can work together because I want to see it as well, all of this with Prometheus. So thanks, Kai, and let's work together on that. Is there a way to set up alerts if, say, metrics hits 80%? Yes, they are multiple ways in Grafana natively to set up alerts without any problem. So just ping me as well on the community, on the vExpert Slack or on Twitter, and we can take a look into these alerts. All those information there is over about the plugin, or you are getting some by SNMP. Some information is not exposed over the plugin, like the vCenter version, the ESXi version, and other things that I would love to get. So yeah, I was working as well to add some of these with SNMP. So that's a good question, Juan Jose. Would you monitor in vSAN too? The answer is yes, but it's on another Telegraf branch for now, still not merged on main branch. So you can monitor it vSAN in the case that you download that Telegraf branch. Then is vSAN statistics supported for Telegraf? Yes, the same question. So the answer is yes, but on another Telegraf branch. I use your dashboards and they are really useful. Thank you for sharing your work. Thank you, Christian. Raymond Franco, thanks. Hope enough to start the next session. Feel free to stay. Okay. So I think that it's all. Thank you so much, guys, for jumping here today on the code session, and I hope to see you on future sessions. So thank you so much and enjoy VMwall.